welcome to another classical crossover interview. Today, I'm so excited to be talking to Anna Hawkins from New Zealand. Hi, Anna. How is everything by you? It's quite early by you, isn't it? It's 7 here, but I think it's like morning.
Yeah, it's the morning. It's not early. It's 11 a.m. It's
Okay.
almost midday. Yeah.
You've got some things already done for the day. And
Yes, yeah, and my little boys too. He makes sure we wake up early. That is early, like
okay.
5:30 and
5:30. Yeah, that's quite early.
early. Nowadays, it's the norm.
Yeah.
So.
What part of New Zealand are you from?
Oh, well, I live in the Bay of Plenty, which
Okay.
is near the beach. So right now it's actually lovely and sunny outside, even though it's winter for us over here. And I grew up on a farm not far from here in the Waikato, so near Hamilton.
Oh, okay. So my sister and
North
I,
Island.
North Island is where you are. Okay. Yeah, I spent about 3 weeks in New Zealand once, so I fell in love with it. It's beautiful.
Where did you go?
It was around. I can't remember all the places, but it was. I mean, like we went to Auckland. I guess like Christchurch and all that is South Islands, yeah. Okay, so we didn't go there. I think we were North Islands. So yeah. So let's chat a little bit about kind of how you got started for people that may not know you yet, and then we'll go into your albums and all of that.
Okay. So how I got started, well, my mum likes to say that I was singing before I could talk, but at about 7, I actually started out in country and western music.
Okay.
So did all the competitions and was winning. I was about 10 and was in the New Zealand Entertainer of the Year, which, you know, when you're a 10-year-old was a really big deal. And then about 11, I started classical singing lessons. So from there, I sort of started getting into musical theatre, and I think by about 13 or 14, I started singing with orchestras and, doing recitals or classical competitions and things like that. So it just kind of progressed from there. Of course, I was very heavily involved in music at school. I've always known that this is what I wanted to do, and just, probably wasn't until I started, I recorded a debut album that most people won't know about when I was 13 or 14 called Russian Lullaby. And that's quite funny. But otherwise, my first album was not until I was in my 20s, and that was Journey On. And I recorded that in Poland, which is a whole nother story.
So, okay, wait, you're going to have to share some of those clips from that early album now that we know it exists. Do you still have a copy of it?
I do have a copy of it. Yes, I do. I've got a few still left. My mum likes to, my mum and dad like to keep everything to document it. I was only 13 or 14 when I recorded the vocals, and it's songs like I Dreamed a Dream and On My Own and Eriskay Love Lilt, and just all these sort of songs that I was learning and singing at the time. So
that's so awesome.
I've got an EP as well that I released that was recorded in New Zealand. That was called Credo.
Yes.
So that one was that is out there in the world. And then Journey On was my sort of big debut, and it featured some of my own original music, which was quite a big step for me, because songwriting, I think, kind of developed later in my life. Having, been performing on stage, I always sort of saw myself first as a performer and a singer, and it wasn't until sort of my late teens that I sort of started dabbling with writing my own songs.
Were you encouraged to do that by teachers, or it just kind of was, you're writing out your feelings, or?
Well, actually, my younger sister started writing, so she's about 6-7 years younger than me, and I saw her started writing songs, and I sort of thought, I'd sort of done a little bit of that, but actually it was someone very influential in my life that said that I would never be a songwriter very early on. So, and I think I just kind of moved that out of my mind. I just sort of thought, oh, well, I'm a singer, you know, I'm a performer. I'm already singing, I'm performing covers with orchestras and things like that. And I thought, you know, I'm not a songwriter. I don't play proficiently another instrument. I think I took that to heart. So maybe that's why it took later to develop. But seeing my sister really inspired me because she was just, you know, playing around on her guitar. And I thought, well, you know, there's some songs that maybe I could, you know, pick out of the woods and start writing again and enjoying that and maybe sharing it with the world, which is always a really vulnerable thing to do.
Do you remember your first song that you kind of performed in public? Was it from the Journey On album, or?
It was from the Journey On album. So actually, and it was a really big performance too. It was the title track, Journey On, and it was with the Christchurch Symphony Orchestra down in the South Island at Hagley Park. So there was probably, you know, a few thousand in attendance, and the song was written and composed very much with orchestra in mind. So to perform it live with an orchestra, I mean, we recorded it with orchestral instruments, but performing it live with an orchestra was just really exhilarating and so rewarding. And nerve-wracking.
I can imagine. That was like a big leap to just go, 1,000 people, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. I mean, I've sung in front of large crowds like that,
but not your own.
Your own song, yeah. It was a proud moment for me, I
fresh green pastures and deep valleys, rugged mountains, onwards I go. I will not stop to look behind. My future lies in the unknown. In the
Ladies and gentlemen, Anna Hawkins.
Thank you very much.
So you mentioned, so you started in country, and you've kind of done something similar in your recent tribute. I think it's called, is it Songbirds, the concert you're doing now? Well, you were doing, and
Yes.
kind of put back a little bit to that.
I did. Well, lately I've been, through the journey of songwriting, I've been really inspired by, the singer-songwriters of the 60s. I just think their music was so iconic and timeless, and, the messages and the sentiments of the music. So I'd sort of been listening to a lot of those singer-songwriters and then realized, it was about 60 years on since the folk music revival, right, in the 1960s and 70s. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to put together a show that really paid homage to those artists, and in particular the female artists, which were emerging and breaking ground at that time and really inspiring to me, So I put together the show, and it did feel like going back to my roots a little bit, because country and folk have a lot of similarities. And I'm also currently working on a new album, which is very much folk inspired. So I thought that would be a nice thing to do, is to, put together a show that initially, sort of shone a light on these artists from the past, but perhaps would merge well into sharing with people, my new album.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, because in crossover, everyone, their background really comes in different ways. And I think you're also Irish, maybe, because your music has quite a Celtic feel to it also.
Yeah. So my grandfather was from Ireland, and my nana was actually, she was a nurse when she was young, and she was nursing on ships like all over the world, and she ended up in Ireland, and she fell in love with him there, and then they came back and settled in New Zealand. So I did grow up with a lot of, just singing, I suppose. We would gather around, and one of my uncles in particular had a friend that plays guitar. He's actually the guy that's in the Songbirds playing guitar.
Oh,
the
cool.
fingerstyle player, if you watch any of those videos. So that was my uncle's friend, and they'd come around and hang out into, in the lounge, and we'd sing all these old Irish songs. So that definitely has influenced my music and songwriting, as that's become a bigger part of who I am and my own expression. I love Celtic music and folk songs. They're so haunting and moving, and again, timeless songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did you kind of like you were on stage, then you were doing classical. Did you kind of like try and find your own sound, or did it just kind of happen naturally when you were going to your album? Or because I feel like you have quite a unique sound in the genre. It's sort of Christian contemporary, also Celtic, very much, you know. So how did you come about that?
Well, I mean, I think my songwriting has, as I said, like is more and more informing what my sound is, and I would say that I'm still learning and discovering even what perhaps my unique sound is.
Okay.
I think perhaps being in New Zealand and needing to be very diverse has influenced my sound as well. I think probably I have an eclectic taste of music anyway, and then having done the country, having done musical theatre and classical, some light opera, you know, it's a real mix. And I also love, you know, I love Barbra Streisand and Celine Dion and you know, popular singers like that, Josh Groban, who's kind of on the cusp there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my influences are kind of very far and wide. And that's why I think if you go and look at my albums, each one is kind of unique and has a little bit of a point of difference. Journey On's, I suppose you could say, Celtic flavored, like almost a bit of world music. Divine was an album that I felt like people were requesting of me to perform and record. So I just kind of wanted to put together an album that had all those inspirational tracks that people just so enjoyed. And of course, having the Christmas bonus tracks on the end.
O come, Emmanuel, to free your captive Israel.
And then Bold, Brave and Beautiful was me again experimenting with my songwriting and having a little bit more of edgier tones. And I would say that this album that I'm working on now has a very folk theme, probably a little bit going back to Journey On, but more acoustic and stripped back.
So tell us about Journey On, because for just someone, an indie artist, I believe that one was released independently, right?
Yes.
So that's a big commitment to do that, the whole huge orchestra, everything you had.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a little bit, I don't know, something in the water here in New Zealand makes us a little bit mad. It came about in a really interesting way because I met him while he was over here in Poland, over here in New Zealand, sorry, working with some friends of mine that were initially from Poland. And he's like a top producer in Poland. He's worked with like some other producers in London, Ross Cullum, who's worked with Enya and Clannad and Mary Jess as well. So, and anyway, so I met him and I was singing some vocals for my friend, and we got together and had a coffee and basically realized that he had worked on these albums that I knew of and thought were amazing, and that he'd just worked on this album with Mary Jess. And in the same breath, he's like, you know what, you could just come to Poland and we could record an album. We could, you know, like I've got everything set up there, and, you know, there's amazing musicians. Why don't you just come to Poland? And I said, yes. It was just kind of like a, why not? Like, why not? Let's make this happen. So didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and yeah, flew to the other side of the world. I remember arriving and he picked me up in his car, and we got back to his home studio, and he was building onto the studio, and he had 3 guys there that were from Poland and Ukraine, and none of them could speak English. And here's like, so there's like 4 guys and this like New Zealand girl who's just done like a, I don't know, 30-hour flight type thing. And I'm like, wow, where am I? What have I done? But meeting, you know, working with him was absolutely fantastic. He's kind of what I would call a genius, so he has this eccentricness about him, but he's just incredible with putting music together, and the landscape of music, you know, seeing all the layers, and the musicianship over there was just top class. They were just amazing. I really do, looking back, I pinch myself, seeing, you know, videos of us working and having this big string orchestra, and there were Adam String Quartet, which was like a renowned string quartet over there, harp players, percussionists, and yeah, it was incredible. It was a huge risk for me to take, but it was worth it.
So did you went there with like a list of songs, they were all arranged and everything, or did you kind of collaborate and come up with those arrangements there?
We collaborated, so very much so, which was really cool because I was living in like in his house,
yeah,
and he had a home studio. It was like very collaborative. You know, normally you'd go into the studio, record something, and then you'd go home and you'd listen to it separately, and then you'd bring your feedback. But yeah, it was very organic in how it came together. I had 5 or 6 original songs, and I had ideas of what songs that I wanted to record. So I basically put those forward to him, and I think most of them made the cut. There was 1 or 2 were like, that doesn't really fit in there. My Only One, which is on the album, I don't know if you, that came because I recorded my vocals in London with Ross Cullum and Sandy McClelland, and Sandy had this song, My Only One. So that is an original of his, not mine. And he said, you know, would you sing it and would you consider putting it on the album? So we did that in London.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
But I'd sing him my ideas basically, and then he would tinker away on the piano, and we just would, work it out together, which was really cool.
So had you done like orchestral arrangements before, or was that like the first time?
No. So I mean, he's doing all the programming.
Right.
So he would do the programming, so the arranging basically, and then he'd send it to the orchestrator, who would then put it into scored charts for the musicians to read. So I wasn't doing any of that technical stuff. So that's why I say, like, I was like, I suppose I was communicating with him what I could hear, and I would often do that by singing out the parts. So I'm like, I hear the strings going da 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 da, da 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 da, or whatever. And so then he would replay that, and I'd be like, oh, something like, yes, that's working, that's not working. And we'd have the musicians when they'd come in. So he would be, he's the producer, and I would be, I don't know, I suppose I had a co-producer hat on instead of like, but yeah, I would just sing and use like big arm gestures to try and communicate my point. So, yeah.
So what was that like once you came home and you started sharing the album? What was that like reception like immediately?
Yeah, so I think people had a positive response to it. The fact, getting to perform with I've performed Journey on a few times now with some orchestras, which is really special. So I think that sort of suggested that particularly the Journey on song seemed to really resonate with a lot of people. I remember performing in Christchurch, and it wasn't long after they'd had the earthquakes. So the song, kind of, I suppose, spoke into that whole situation, which was cool. Yeah. I did. After that, I went on tour with Paul Potts, actually. So the album was in the charts, which was really cool, and both the New Zealand album only charts and the New Zealand charts, which is just everyone's albums from over the world. So that was really exciting. I'd never been in the charts before, and I think it was around that time that I also did Christine in Ken Hill's Phantom of the Opera in Japan. So it was quite, a lot of things sort of progressed from releasing that album.
And when did you played Lucy in Jekyll and Hyde? I love that musical. So when did you do that role?
So that was I wasn't actually, sounds really funny, but I'd left school, but that was in the final year of my school show. So it's kind of like a private school, I suppose, and they just did exceptional shows, and they did Jekyll and Hyde, and they asked me would I come back or stay on and do Lucy for that role. So
that's so special.
I love that show. It's not everyone knows it, but there's such interesting music, like Dangerous Game, that's so moody, and Someone Like You. She has got all these beautiful solos, basically.
Oh yeah,
that show.
A New Life. I loved you. It's so great. When you went to do Phantom, had you sort of? You obviously heard the role, I guess, before, but did you kind of have to learn it for that, or you'd known it just by listening to it for years and years?
Yeah, well, it's probably not the Phantom that you might be. It's like Ken Hill's Phantom of the Opera. So it's like all these opera pieces. It was the original Phantom of the Opera.
Okay.
So not the Andrew Weber version. So I always try. It's very confusing, but it's it's like the same characters, the same costumes. I had to be blonde because she was blonde in that show, so I was wearing a blonde wig, and it's basically opera pieces. So like Song to the Moon is in there, through the storyline of the Phantom of the Opera, and then from that show, Andrew Lloyd Webber was inspired to create his musical show, but put to original music. So Yeah, it
Fascinating.
was a really, so I didn't know a lot of the music. I of course knew the storyline and knew from being aware of the musical of what Christine Daae, her character and her role should be. Yeah, and being in Japan was then another experience in of itself. We did 2 shows a day, most days, so that was quite a feat. I found singing opera, like basically these opera songs within a show, twice a day. They had it. The theatre was like, I think it had about 1,500 seats. So yeah, and we did 19 shows. So within quite a short space of time, but it was a fantastic experience. And I met the princess, which was very exciting. And we'd always have the signing sessions after the shows too. So you'd kind of, just what a place to go. They were so appreciative of the music. They'd come up and be like, can you sign? Like, shaking their hands, like, oh, bless you. Like, just so sweet, and yeah, really made you feel like a star.
It's amazing. I will definitely have to look into that, because like I read the original Phantom, the book, the novel, but I've seen different versions, but not. That is so awesome. What was like the ending to that show then? What piece did you end with?
Yes. I'm just trying to think of what the song.
Sorry, putting you on the spot here. I'm just.
Yeah. I remember that he died. The Phantom died. Yeah. So, and I was in my wedding dress. So it was that scene. Come and rescue me, and I'm in my wedding gown, and then and I'm looking over him, and he dies because he gets shot, and I'm sort of feeling very torn about that whole situation. Empathy and understanding for him, but yeah. So that's how the story ended. I can't remember the exact song. Like what opera it was from, but I'll have to go back.
From that, did you go right away? Because I think Divine and Bold, Brave and Beautiful, were they sort of recorded at the same time, or?
Yes, yeah. So just to cut down on the amount of trips.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to go back, and I thought, is it possible? Do you think we could do a really strange thing and try and record, 2 albums at one time? And he said yes. So that's what we did, and yeah, that worked really well actually. So we worked with, we didn't record in the same space. We ended up working, I think it was the recording studios in Warsaw. So the previous time we'd been in this big sort of theatre school area. But a lot of the same people, so same orchestrator, a lot of the same players, yeah. And it was fantastic all over again, basically. And it was quite good in recording it together, because you've already got all the string orchestra there, so you just add the songs from both albums together, and you get more done. Of course, all the songs didn't have a full orchestra, but most of them did at least have strings.
So I think I heard you mention, was it Praise to the Lord? That was something that just kind of happened on the spot. It wasn't planned.
Yes, you're full of these interesting little things. Yes. So there was a guy from Israel that had come. He has a studio in Israel that Paavo also is a part of. So he was visiting Paavo in Poland, and listening to what we'd been working on, and he was really enjoying it. It's like, oh, you should sing this song, Praise to the Lord. It's like my favorite hymn, and it's such a classic. And so I didn't know it. I probably heard it, but it wasn't in my repertoire of pieces. Anyway, so he starts, playing along on guitar and things like that. And then Paavo sort of got on board. He's like, yes, we should do this song. We're doing it. Go, like, Anna, go learn it. Go quickly learn it. So I think I went and listened to it, learned it that day, and put down the demo vocals. And he recorded guitar, and yeah, away we went. So we just did that, I think, with like guitar and some percussion and string quartet. So it was just kind of a little bit more low key. And
I love that
yeah,
they just create
it came together really nicely. It kind of has a kind of Celtic flavor as well, so I like that about that song, and it fitted in with other tracks like Be Thou My Vision, who that brings up my friend Hans Kranzlin again, who was the guy who was recording the album who introduced me to Pavo. So it was nice to bring him back on and do that song together. And he's got his own little original part within that song, Be Thou My Vision. And his daughter also sings on the very beginning.
Yes.
So it's a very unique version of the song, the way we did it. But
and I love that because like it's a hymn. It's so beautiful. It gets done so many times, and it's very fresh the way you guys did it. It's fantastic. So I love your debut album. I just think is one of probably the best classical crossover debut albums. I absolutely love that one. You started going a little bit different direction with Bold, Brave, and Beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about that one? So I actually have the version you signed for me here. I love the title track. It has encouraged me so many times when I was down. So how did you get the inspiration for that?
Well, thank you. Well, Bold, Brave, and Beautiful, I suppose, I mean, it's where you are mentally and emotionally. I wanted to continue to be bold and brave in my life. I think things like going to Poland and recording Journey On, and then deciding to go back again, and just basically it was like part of a commitment to, you know what, I'm going to keep going after my dreams, and I'm just going to keep working, and I'm not going to give up. And so that is what inspired that album. Songs like I Will Rise, from certain experiences, disappointments, letdowns, and Breaking Free. I suppose that original song was about breaking out of the mold. I just feel like so many people want to, it's just what we do as people, because we categorize and we want to put people in boxes because it's just easier to understand that way. But and particularly with music, people, what genre are you? And I suppose for me personally, I've struggled with that question because I've sung so many different things, and I enjoy so much music from multiple genres. So why do I have to limit myself, So that's what that song was about. And the whole album just came from that place of wanting to experiment, to encourage experimentation and exploration and discovery about yourself and about others. And I think to be like that is to be brave and to be bold, because you put yourself at risk and you make yourself vulnerable in those moments. So it definitely does have more of a pop bent, and I think it was really fun to play with that. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that's what will feel like home long term for me, but it was really fun to just kind of experiment with those new sounds, mixing in with the classical as well.
Yeah, I love the line that there's no expiring date. That's just fantastic.
Oh, thank you. That's right. No expiry date.
Yep.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, so you're recording an album now. Do you have a theme for it, or is it you're just kind of letting your songs and the sound lead you?
Yeah. I can try and give you like a little hint on the theme. I suppose it's kind of building on top of Bold, Brave, and Beautiful, in the sense that it's still about encouraging, exploration and play and imagination. Probably most of all, it's about dreaming and continue to give you permission to dream. So I feel like this album, if it was anything, it would be the album that I'm creating for other like-minded dreamers out there. So people that dream of creating a better world, people that dream of, of leaving behind a legacy, of their lives having purpose and having meaning, and they're holding out for that hope. So I hope that this album will be an encouragement to those people that, perhaps they're having a down day, or perhaps they're struggling, or they're lonely, and that this album can be like an infusion of hope for people.
So I think my last question for you is about, you said you always knew you wanted to be a singer, but you had kind of a scary thing happen to you when you were young, and that you damaged your voice box.
Yes. How do you know about that? When did you find out about that? I did. So we lived on a farm. So my brother and I were on a motorbike and hooning up the fields as you do, and we had a crash, an accident, and my throat was hit really, really hard. So I remember I couldn't breathe at first, and then I think we ended up running home because my brother's like, I was playing it all calm, and then he says to me, I hear if you hit yourself in a certain part in your throat, you can die within minutes. So then we ended up walking slowly to we sprinted home, and by the time we got home to my dad, we were hysteric. Anyway, he took me to the hospital, and they put the cameras down, and I had just big bruising, so hematomas on my voice box and damage to my voice box, and I couldn't speak. It was all croaky and raspy, and I think it was about in 10 days time that I had that New Zealand Entertainer of the Year, so which was the biggest competition that I'd, you have to win overall another competition to get into it. And I remember thinking am I going to be able to sing? And they said probably not. I had to be silent, no singing. And I remember even at that early age, I felt like this was a gift that I'd been given. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I wanted to do this with my life. And I felt like it had been given to me by God. And I remember just sort of thinking, well, God, if this was given to me, then it was never mine to start with. And I'll just, give it back to you and hope for the best. And yeah, I remember you had to have regular checks. And I remember going back at a later date and right before the competition to be checked. And I'd had prayer, people had been praying for me. And he put down the camera and he's like, I don't understand. There's no hematomas. There's a slight redness on one side of your voice box. I suppose I'll have to let you sing. I suppose I have to give you the green light. And yeah, so I very much recall that part of my journey, and I'm very thankful for that. And I still hold that same belief that this is a gift, that I've been entrusted with, and I try to do my best with it. And my heart is to serve people and bless other people with that. And that will probably be the thing that will keep driving me to keep going. Yeah.
I love that story. I think it's really great, and your music does really give an inspirational feel. So I love the behind the scenes.
It's a very personal story that probably not many people know about. So there you go.
So yeah, I've been a fan. I've been watching all your videos.
It's really neat.
It's been so awesome to speak to you, Anna. Thank you so much for being a part of the concert and being a part of this interview series. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me and inviting me. It's such a lovely community that you have and that you've fostered and built up. So I really commend you for that. So thank you.
Thank you. And can you give us kind of a hint when the album might be? Next year, maybe?
No, so it will be this year.
Okay.
And I don't have any dates in mind yet. I had a timeline, and then
yeah,
the world shut down, and So yeah, all my plans, I'm just reshuffling and trying to work it out. But I do hope that it will be coming to you soon. I have a music video and a single that should be out very soon. So like probably, you know, a month, 2 months away at most. Let's cross fingers it's a month. But it was recorded at the beautiful Bethel's Beach in Auckland, and we were going to record another music video, and it ended up raining. It was just raining and misty and cloudy, and so we're like, well, this song would really suit this vibe. So we shot a whole entirely another video, and it's come out really nice. So yeah, watch out for that one.
I'll be so excited to see it. Thank you again. Lovely talking to you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, you too. All right.
Thanks. Bye,
See you,
Anna.
Bye.
Oh, brave